Good evening, everybody. I'm calling to order the board meeting of the Tukwila School District Board of Directors for Tuesday, April 26, 2022. Looks like all board members are present. And guests are in attendance. Welcome all guests to our meeting as we go through our agenda this evening. We'll start with the welcome message and land recognition from Director Hoover.
Good evening, everyone. So as per usual, we just want to start with recognizing and reminding us and the community of our agreements that we have drawn from the Courageous Conversation framework. And those four are to stay engaged, experience discomfort and be vulnerable, speak your truth, and expect and accept non-closure. To honor the land that we are on. We in the Tukwila School District acknowledge that the land where we teach, collaborate, learn, and play is the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and the Muckleshoot people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish and Muckleshoot tribes. As a public school district, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of this land. And we recognize the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people who have been living and working here since time immemorial.
Thank you, Director Hoover. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved for this evening's meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Agenda is approved. I just wanted to take a quick second here before we dive into the agenda, just to outline some procedural issues. So as I think most of you are probably aware, we got the resignation of our president, Director Apoa Ryder. And so what that does is initiates a few procedures that we're going to take up under action items 9D. And just to let people know how this works. So when we get a resignation of a board member, a process is initiated. So Dr. Herndon will initiate a process to accept applications for people who may want to, from the community, who may want to apply to be taken that position. So this position is in Director Area 3, which is generally the area between I-5 and International Boulevard and north of South 144th Street. There's a little area of District 3 that's below South 144th Street. So if you have anybody in the community has a question about whether they're in District 3 or not, you can contact the district. You can look at the district website, as the map is laid out in detail there. And so what will happen is there'll be a few week period where the desire to get applications is communicated to the community. To qualify, you need to be a US citizen, you need to be registered to vote, and you need to reside within District Area 3. Anybody who's in the community who's interested in that, feel free to contact the district, feel free to contact any board members if you want to get some idea about, what it involves to be a board member. There's also some really good resources on the School Directors Association, that's WSSDA.org, School Directors Association's a website about what it involves to be a school board member. So anyway, all those resources are available. And then after the period of applications is closed, the board will then have a meeting to review the applicants and to go through an interview process, public interview process, and select who will be serving in that position. That position will serve through the end of 2023. And there will be on the ballot, that position will also be on the ballot in November of 2023 for ongoing election to Director Area 3. The other thing that will happen at the end of, under action item 9D, is when we, the board formally accepts the resignation, then we have two vacancies, one for the presidency and one for the vice president of the board. And we will go through a process to, internal process on the board to nominate someone to serve as president going forward, and then nominate somebody to serve as vice president going forward. So anyway, I just wanted to let folks know what the process will be and what that will look like. So I don't know, from the board, any questions about process, procedure? Okay, it's pretty much laid out in the policies. So, all right, so that's, we'll start with, if there's no questions, start with public comment and in the virtual format. So Ms. Kaur, do we have either someone who wants to do it? Via Zoom?
We have three public comments. One is from Miss Pat Larson, and she will be reading hers. And then I received 2 written comments that I will be reading.
Okay. You want to start with
Miss Larson? Yes, just a moment.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Miss Larson.
I want to make sure that I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Pat Larson. I reside at 14244 55th Avenue South, Tukwila. Phone 206-478-5834. What I'm reading is in response to the incident on February 8th, and then the subsequent responses. The focus of this letter is to address 2 overarching questions. First, how did this happen? And what's done is done, now what? First, I'd like to express my sincere condolences to Director Apoa Ryder for the emotional harm the event caused her. From what I've read, Director Bolerjack's words triggered a flashback to a traumatic event in her life, which caused her to relive the pain from that past event. For that, I'm sorry she had that experience. How did this happen? As leaders as a system of schools, the philosophy of looking to yourself first means looking to yourself first for answers instead of blaming others. So let's explore what led up to the event of February 8th and the subsequent responses. First, the entry task was poorly worded and not well thought out. Director Larson invited directors to recognize someone appropriate in honor of Black History Month. What was considered appropriate? Who was going to evaluate the responses to determine their appropriateness? Whose history is going to be considered? In US history, global history, personal history? Success criteria was not identified for the participants. Was this a homework assignment where directors were supposed to research someone, perhaps someone who could be Googled? Or was it a pop quiz without any preparation, which is a guess what I'm thinking prompt when with someone evaluating the responses is right or wrong? I would suggest it was a guess what I'm thinking prompt, which set the stage for what happened next. When Director Bolerjack's response was judged to not match the prompt by whomever was the evaluator, why wasn't her response probed for more contextual information? A good facilitator and educator would have probed the response, utilizing effective communication skills and questioning to help find the connection. Because to Director Bolerjack, there was a connection. There are 3 educators on the board, now 2, including Director Bolerjack, and no one stepped up to do what every educator has been taught to do: explore responses by questioning or probing for more information. This was a missed opportunity to hear a first-person account of what it was like for a current white advocate and ally to have grown up in a time where racism was covert and racist comments were a part of the norm. This is a part of history that is invisible. No one ever asked what it was like for white children to grow up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s during the first civil rights movement. How are the children influenced by the rhetoric and behavior of the adults around them? How are they affected by the media? How did it influence them to become the adults they are today? The history department at Foster uses primary documents regularly to give context to actions in different time periods. Here you have a living, breathing primary document that could provide another perspective to the unit on social justice or their civil rights unit. After looking at all the names of the responses to this incident, not one of them lived during this time. They weren't born yet. Their responses use current politically correct frames to justify the responses. They didn't live this history. Second, leaders are supposed to model the way for their followers. Resolution 921 has modeled the way to ignore the process of social justice and instead has modeled how to publicly shame someone. The resolution has set the district's commitment to race and equity back at least 10 years. What happened to the process of having courageous conversations and using the social justice process to repair harm and gain new understandings and perspective? Lastly, the words "do no harm" appear to be the basis of the resolution, and yet those terms are not used in policy 0535, the race and equity policy. After further research, I couldn't find any procedures that have been written to accompany the policy. There are a lot of references to other board policies and legal references, but no procedures for the board to follow. By not having procedures to follow, it allows the board and others to react and do whatever they want in response to perceived violations of policy 0535. At this point in time, I'm not sure to whom the words "do no harm" refer to. What's done is done. Now what? How does the board recover from this and learn? As a community member, a retired educator, and a voter, I'm asking Dr. Herndon to begin looking for ways to repair the damage that's been done. To repair the damage, the board needs to be recreated into a functioning board, one that works as a team for the greater good of the children in our school system. It appears the board needs further training in board development, effective communication, conflict resolution, and how to be an effective leader. I'm hoping to see actionable steps and metrics in the next strategic plan for the district. I'll let you read the other quotes, but thank you very much for listening to my feelings.
Thank you very much, Ms. Larson. So Ms. Core, you're going to read a couple of comments.
I am, and I'm looking in chat to see if anyone has raised their hand, and I don't see any. So if you see one, please let me know while I'm reading. The first one is from Megan Bresnihan. She said, my name is Megan Bresnihan, and I am a teacher at Cascade View, and I have worked at Cascade View for 13 years. Today, I want to take the time to recognize Director Jan Bolerjack for her dedication and support to our students and families. She plays an essential role in bridging the Tukwila community and our school. Throughout the years, Jan has volunteered and tutored our students. She is very patient and kind. Director Jan helped provide targeted instruction to our students that needed extra practice in a small group setting. She worked with students in all grades, and they loved working with her. Jan's commitment to educating our students is unwavering. She organized and recruited Cascade View teachers like myself to help plan a summer school at her church ground for our students the year summer school was unavailable. Scrolling down. Our families were so grateful and appreciative to have something available for their children. She also recognized that the pandemic caused extreme learning loss, so she organized another summer tutoring program last summer, the Busy Minds, to help students that needed additional learning support. The tutors were teachers, ESPs, and college students, and we have worked with kids from Cascade View, Thorndike, and Showalter, helping them with reading and math. And when several of our students and families faced hardship and needed a safe place, they found shelter at Director Jan's church. Jan is always welcoming and very compassionate. They found a place to live on the church property. Our students had a place to call home, close to school and friends. And as teachers, it put our minds at ease that our students' lives could be somewhat normal by remaining at their home school, and having the students nearby allowed us to drop off school supplies and assignments when they needed them. Director Jan also plays a pivotal role in providing essential goods and services to our families. For example, my daughter and I volunteered at the Tukwila Food Pantry during the summer, and on some weekends, there were 500 families. Director Jan worked tirelessly loading boxes of food and other resources into cars. And many of our students and families also walked to get what they needed for the week. Once again, Director Jan always welcomed them with open arms and provided special treats for the kids. As a teacher and parent, I cannot express enough gratitude and appreciation for Director Jan Bolerjack's commitment to our students and families. She has always been a strong leader and positively impacted our community and school. And the work she does to support our students is incredible. Thank you, Director Jan, for always setting our students as your top priority. And the next one is from Lee Aliga. She says, I have lived in this community for over 35 years. My husband and I raised our 3 children in this community. They attended Cascade View Elementary, Showalter Middle School, Foster High School, and Kennedy Catholic High School. First, I would like to acknowledge and thank all of our elected Tukwila School Board directors for their countless hours of hard work in supporting our students, families, and staff. Our leaders all bring years of experience through education, community service, and continue to volunteer not only in our schools, but our community as well. Next, I want to thank Jan Bolerjack, also known as Reverend Jan Bolerjack at Riverton Park United Methodist Church. I know her as Jan for her undeniable service in Tukwila. Jan has helped our community in many ways over the years. In 2012 and 2019, Tukwila's Riverton Park United Methodist Church hosted Tent City 3 homeless encampment, which was home to 50 to 100 men, women, and children. Tent City 3 was allowed to stay in one location for 3 months before having to relocate again. Riverton Park United Methodist Church continues to host tents and homeless families on the church grounds. Over the years, some of the children attended Tukwila School District. I've witnessed the compassion and love that Jan has for our children, especially our homeless families. One school year, Jan walked 3 young children to school almost every day, the youngest in kindergarten, to ensure they attended school safely. At the end of the school day, Jan returned to meet the children to walk them back home while their parents were at work. A few years back, before the pandemic, our district didn't have the budget for summer school to help our most vulnerable children. Jan, being the person she is, reached out to some of Cascade View Elementary educators and community members if they would volunteer during the month of July 3 times a week to teach our children reading and math skills. Through their collaboration together, Jan set up a tent, tables, and chairs to provide a summer program for our young children. Along with their learning, she provided food for the children to eat before they went home. The Tukwila Pantry Food Bank is also located in the church basement. It serves South King County cities in Tukwila, SeaTac, Berrien, and Boulevard Park. Before the pandemic, the food bank served about 50 families per day. Families shopped indoors, choosing items they needed from the food bank. When the pandemic hit, Tukwila Pantry Food Bank, led by Jan, employees, and volunteers, had to quickly change how to provide services to the community and stay safe. They were able to provide a drive-through system. The food bank went from serving 250 families per week to over 1,000 families per week. Our most vulnerable individuals and families in Tukwila found a safe place to receive food, shelter, clothing, vaccines, dental care, and some rental assistance. These are services Jan and her staff provide to our community. My family volunteered alongside other volunteers and Jan to prepare, help cook, and set up the church dining hall for the homeless and community members to come together to have a hot meal or place to go on Thanksgiving Day. Last summer, a fire at the Maple Crest apartment in Tukwila, 31 families lost everything and 3 lives were lost. Jan stepped in to help, along with other community organizations. She opened up the church to collect and distribute clothing and household items for the victims. Jan works with the World Relief and International Rescue Committee, most recently helping our Afghan refugee families with resources needed to start a new life in America. So many of our refugee families over the years had to flee their beloved countries for freedom and safety. Many settled here in Tukwila through the assistance of IRC and people like Jan. She continues to offer support to our families from all over the world. Jan serves on the Human Services Advisory Board, which helps assess the need for human services in Tukwila and recommends policies and programs for the funding to the mayor. She also serves on the Community-Oriented Policing Citizens Advisory Board, which discusses concerns of public safety and police services in our city with the Chief of Police. Once again, I would like to thank all of our school board directors for their service and love of our school district. I hope we continue to work together as a community. That's it for me.
Thank you to Ms. Brisgin and Aliaga for their comments. So now we're going to move ahead to the superintendent's report. Dr. Hernan.
Good evening. Thank you, board directors and staff and guests. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. For the superintendent's report, we are continuing to work on several different areas. One is our strategic plan. We've been having a series of meetings with different groups and stakeholders. This week we had one with government agencies, and there were meetings last week as well. As we continue through that process and wrap up with the individual stakeholders, there will be an opportunity with the facilitator, Center for Educational Effectiveness out of the University of Washington, who will be bringing together all of the different stakeholder groups and having a summit to basically talk about the feedback that has been received through each of the processes. So the target is to get that going in May, since we're almost at the end of April, and then have some recommendations to the board before. The whole idea is to have our strategic plan ready to go and hopefully wrapped up before the end of the school year, so we know going into the next school year what we're focusing on. So that's what we're on target to do. Additionally, we're also in that process of re-examining our school resource officer program and continuing to have listening sessions as well. We have another one this week with some students, our middle school students, and then we'll be following basically that same process with roughly the same timeline. Lastly, I will be attending the State Superintendent's Conference coming up this weekend and early next week. Several different items that I'll be discussing with my colleagues around, some of which have, there was an article today about how different school districts have been tackling the challenges of ongoing substitutes. So I'm interested to talk to those colleagues who've been looking at different ways in which they have been able to address the substitute shortages, which was definitely something that happened, was highlighted even more during COVID. Additionally, there's been conversations about things like transitional kindergarten and the Puget Sound ESD is starting an online school collaborative, which would be great. So they're basically working as the host, and so I'll be finding out more information about that. That may be open to the possibility of providing online options for some of our families and students. That has to go through a process approval, either schools or coursework has to be approved by OSPI. So depending on how we look at our ongoing offerings for next year, that's something I'm going to continue to find additional information about. And then lastly, for the superintendent's report, tomorrow I'll be at the Puget Sound Skills Center hosted by the Highline School District, where we have several students that attend there on a fairly regular basis. So this is one of the quarterly meetings that we have with the various school districts that send students in this particular area. So there are skill centers all around the state. We're part of the Puget Sound Skills Center. And so tomorrow it's talking about the what's happening with the Skills Center offerings for next year, looking at their budget, And I believe they also have a transition for a new principal as well. So that's what's coming up in this week and the coming weeks.
Any questions for Dr. Herndon?
I have another question. I'm curious, and I know we chatted a little bit about this the other day, but I imagine folks may be curious about it as well. What steps have been taken since our last discussion regarding last month's walkout, specifically around the request for restorative opportunities for students who've experienced sexual assault and harassment, and then some educational opportunities around social media use and safety?
Yeah, I know the principals reached out at the building level and had conversations with various students. So I'll find out the additional pieces if they've done additional outreach for social media pieces. But those are some of the what we're looking into for this year, as well as planning for the fall. So I don't know specifically how many groups the principal reached out to, but I do know he spoke with several different groups of students. I can get more clarity from him.
That'd be great. I also think I think this is an opportunity for, strong district support, right? Strong central admin support, really figuring out how we can, collectively as a district, because it's likely not just a Foster High School challenge, right? So this is district-wide, I'm certain. I wonder if there's an opportunity to really take some steps as a district to how we're really creating an infrastructure that's supporting, awareness around sexual harassment and.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, it's true at each of the building levels. And as we do with a lot of the things that impact students, especially specifically, I mean, we do support the buildings as much as possible. So that's why we would lean heavily on the building admin teams to help us identify the ways in which we can support them best. So they're in the buildings, every day. They're seeing the trends that we have going on there. So that's why we try and have discussions with them as frequently as possible. But certainly, yes, it's a district-wide issue that we're dealing with.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll move into the COVID-19 report.
Okay, so we continue to monitor any changes that are happening with current variants. So we talk with the Puget Sound ESD. There is no updated guidance from the King County Department of Health at this point as it relates to schools, but we do continue to track that. There has been an uptick in cases, both in King County and Tukwila specifically, but as I've been watching the data, especially for hospitalizations and deaths, obviously those are the most impactful, but we also are making sure we track the number of cases within the school district, both in staff and students. And we have seen a slight increase. I think currently we have maybe a total of 6 combination of students and staff that may be quarantined at this point. So we still have all of our quarantine specialists and quarantine support specialists in place. We also received some feedback lately that just to let people know, even though we have all that information on our website, we're going to include that for staff on the number of cases that we have district-wide in our weekly kind of bulletin that we've been sending out to staff. So then that way we can reflect that so that they can see whatever trends are in there. But if people want to know specifically about a building, we do have those available on our district website under the COVID page, and then you can see by school the number of cases or folks who are absent related to that. Our levels of PPE remain strong. We have plenty of tests available, and we're currently working on the next vaccine possibility. So we received some feedback also from a number of staff who may be interested in the additional booster shot, which is great. So it looks like that's pretty high. We're going to be coordinating with our provider. We still have not received the go-ahead on students less than 5 or children less than 5 years old, that still hasn't been cleared yet. So it's interesting because that was a conversation that kind of happened in the fall, as you recall. I think we were first talking about this back in October. So we're continuing to wait from the CDC and the FDA about that approval. So I was just chatting earlier today about that, and they're thinking that it may even be until the summer. So I find it interesting. I'm glad, that there's a thorough process going through vetting the impact, especially on any age group. So we'll continue to monitor that, but as soon as that becomes available, then we would include students or children less than 5 years old in our vaccination possibilities as well. Because in each of those vaccination clinics, we've opened it up to our families and not just our students and our staff. So as soon as we have more information on that, time and location for our next vaccination possibility, we'll make sure that we put that out there. Usually we know about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time. So as soon as we get that information, we'll get it out to everybody.
So are there any questions on the COVID report? Okay, if not, we'll move to director's report and see, why don't we start with Director Morris?
We had a work session this evening where we reviewed the board operating principles. And one was on the instructional and support staff work together most effectively when provided with appropriate and adequate tools to meet the needs of our students and to ensure highest opportunity for them to succeed. I was a little bit disheartened when we received a letter from the high school math staff expressing their concerns about a change in their program. We have extremely insightful, knowledgeable, caring staff who spend a great deal of time and thought and energy establishing the most effective programs for our students that they work with on a daily basis. They consistently evaluate their programs and tools that they utilize, and they have data to prove the growth in their students. I think it's imperative that the staff's voices be heard and their experiences, insights being sought. I would appreciate seeing the administration and the math staff hold a conversation that will provide the programs and classes to support our students and their learning. I don't feel comfortable taking programs and strategies away from our staff members that have proven to be effective. So if that's a possibility, it really needs to happen. So thank you.
Director Hoover.
Thank you so much. Oh, okay. So before I get to a few things I'm doing, I just want to kind of name something really quick. So when I think about the work that we as a board have to do both as a team, as well as really establishing and strengthening, reestablishing, and then strengthening the trust that we have with the community, we have a long road ahead. Accountability is really difficult. It looks different based on the setting, who's involved, what the impact was, the power dynamics that might be at play, and a lot more. So many things go into accountability. What I do know is that accountability requires that individuals take responsibility. Restoration and healing doesn't come as a result of blame shifting, defending, or justifying behavior. It comes from ownership and connection. So I'm really excited to tell you about a few things that I have been doing, and I've been sharing a little bit in my last few director's reports. So I want to start off by saying that I realize that for many folks, conversations around gender may be new. We work hard to make sense of our world, and often in doing so, we uphold insidious, harmful, and often vital and fatal societal structures, right, that help us maintain our sense of the world. There's a lot of unlearning that we as leaders, as educators, and members of a caring community must do around many, many things, but I'm honing in on gender right now. So from Injustice at Every Turn, which is a study and a survey that was done around transgender experience and harassment. It was reported that those who express a transgender identity or gender nonconformity while in grades K through 12 reported alarming rates of harassment at about 78%. About 35% reported physical assault, and then 12% sexual violence. Harassment was so severe that it led almost to 1/6, so 15% of those transgender students to leave K through 12 settings or higher education. The reality is this is happening right here in our district. When surveyed, many of our LGBTQ students reported feeling unsafe and unseen. I've heard stories and instances of bullying behaviors, targeting, intentional misgendering, and too many instances of staff and students being denied their right to use a bathroom. Here in Washington State, transgender students have a right to be referred by their correct name and pronouns, access bathrooms that correspond to their gender, attend school without discrimination and harassment. Right now in our district, we are not providing our students and our staff the right that they are owed here in Washington State, and as human beings, the right that they are owed as human beings. So the need for gender inclusion, in gender inclusive, all gender or gender neutral bathrooms is long overdue. So right now we're focusing on bathrooms, but this is just the beginning. Every single student, staff, volunteer, and member of our community should feel safe and to be fully themselves in our larger community, in our buildings. So I'm going to spend some time, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here dispelling untruths or walk through a lot of the ways that our current structures don't support the dignity and inclusion of trans or non-binary people. But I want to say out loud that I'm always up for a conversation. So if there are things that you want to grapple with or talk about or aren't sure about, I am so open to having some conversation with you about that. So what I've been doing, we are in the process of forming an advisory group that is going to really support the movement of the gender inclusive practices throughout the district. This group is open to anyone who's invested in creating a district whose policies, actions, and norms affirm the dignity and rights of trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming staff and students. We're hoping to have our first meeting on May the 4th. I'm going to put a form here in the chat. If you are interested in joining this advisory group, please do. Again, anyone is welcome that is committed to creating a more gender inclusive space for our students and our staff. So that's kind of been in the works. Additionally, and more specifically, we've been working closely with student, staff, and Mr. Blanton at Foster High School. Students have really been leading and driving this work. While they needed the bathrooms open yesterday, they really wanted to make sure that there was space and opportunity for both staff and students to learn and have some dialogue to help actually support the successful implementation of gender inclusive restrooms. So the staff had some minimal opportunities to both increase their understandings around gender, as well as discuss the move to reopening those gender inclusive restrooms at Foster. So really excited about those opportunities that took place this month. The history department has also been working to develop some lesson plans for student education around gender. This is kind of the first step in what we're hoping to become a more complete gender studies curriculum that will become a part of our our standing curriculum at Foster. And then those bathrooms are set to open on, I believe, May 11th, but they'll open at the conclusion of all of the student lessons. The students that were really advocating for this work really wanted to make sure that they were creating a space where students could just ask questions and just kind of get out any, any untruths or dispel some myths or just have an opportunity to safely ask some questions. So there's that. I'm really excited about that work and much more to come in that realm. And then the other thing that I just wanted to highlight, a few months ago, I was working with Direct Dog for a Rider, and we had the opportunity to work collaboratively with Ms. Kaur and Mr. Hayes to continue making our work more accessible. So we were able to implement the new public comment process. And then I want to share a huge appreciation for those folks, as well as Ms. Marting. As well as Ms. Marting, for the work that you've done on the website. And I also want to name this for everyone that is here to know that you can actually now access on our board page, our meeting recordings for past meetings, past work sessions. All of our meeting recordings, our agendas, and our meeting minutes. They're much more accessible right there on the site for you, as well as creating that place to submit public comment and easily find our meeting schedule. This is just one part of our commitment to increase transparency. So I just want to say thank you, Ms. Kaur, Mr. Hayes, and Ms. Marting for your hard work on that. It looks really nice, and I'm really grateful for that. And then just more generally and more broadly, I've been really grateful for the increased communication that I know I have been seeing. I'm so excited about the Tukwila Superstars. I think that really intentional appreciation and highlighting of all of the work that our folks are doing in the building is much needed. So thank you for bringing that. And just thanks for all the hard work that you have already done, Ms. Marting, since you joined us as the communications director. So thanks.
Thanks, Director Hoover. Director Bolerjack.
Thank you. And thank you, Carly, for continuing to work on that gender equity. It would have been nice if we could have built those bathrooms in when we built the new buildings, but it wasn't the right time for this district. But now hopefully it is the right time and we will get that taken care of. I want to just let you know that some of what I've been doing in the last couple of weeks has been in response to the harm I caused in February. And some of those things have been, Rachel Cargill has a series called The Unlearn, The Great Unlearn. It's a great series that talks about what some of us need to unlearn these days. She is a woman of color who mostly speaks to white women, helping us to see with different eyes. And I appreciate what she's teaching me. Also, TED Talks. One that I especially appreciated was Brene Brown, talking about vulnerability and courage. Strong speaker. I've also spent some time just reading banned books, understanding what it is that people find offensive in them and why we need to continue to present the history that is told in those stories. Mouse, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Hate U Give. I read that again this week. So much truth in those books. I've been working with Aaron on, or talking to Aaron about retention and hiring of teachers of color, making sure that we have the things in place to make them want to stay in our district, the coaching and the support systems, as well as how we're reaching out to hire new folks that represent our community. Along with Dave and Edna, I went to the WASDA Area 2 meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it was a good meeting of school board directors from this area. I also serve on the statewide WASDA nominations committee, so getting to hear a lot about what's going around the state and who's going to take leadership in our state offices for education. I attended the one strategic planning that John Steach offered to community members. There were only three of us there, which was disappointing. You would think that we could get more community members to speak about the strategic plan for the district, and we may find a way to reach out to more when it becomes the big gathering. The only other thing is Deb Kaur and Carrie Marting and Edna and I are working to put together a amazing staff appreciation for our amazing staff. And hopefully all of our staff will be able to attend that so that we can show our appreciation from the board. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bolajak. So for my report, so I'm serving for the next 2 years on the WASDA, that is the School Directors Association Legislative Committee. And so this Friday and Saturday, we're having a meeting over in Pasco to look at the various submission for new legislative positions and modified legislative positions from around the state and figure out how to move forward with them. As you may recall, in our district, we've submitted 4 of them related primarily to various equity and funding issues, which is, what my focus is going to be in that group, trying to advocate heavily for a much more equity in our state funding system, and that is allocations based on student need and making sure that the resources go to where the highest needs are. I did also want to bring up again the fact that as a board, we will be needing to examine our director district boundaries in light of the 2020 census. I was looking at our board policy 1105. I think we have supposedly 8 months from the time that we get the new census data to examine our boundaries to see if they're still, basically we're looking at them to see if they're balanced equally in terms of populations and so forth. So anyway, the time is ticking on that one. Hopefully it should get that one examined and looked at and modified if needed by the end of this year. I did want to do a couple of recognitions for our staff. Last month, the robotics team from Foster High School competed in a regional event with First Robotics in Auburn and came in first place, which is a huge accomplishment considering that program just started a couple of years ago and of course was impacted heavily by the pandemic. So just want to recognize Mr. Shaman, who's the leader of that group, and there was a couple of folks from the outside business community who came in to support them. The other interesting thing was there was like 21 students, I think, that took part in that activity. And I know some of them were students who had taken part in the robotics programs in our elementary schools. So it's great to see as we develop a great robotics program. Still need some work, I think, at middle school, which I know we had a grant to start working on that so that students can, achieve their maximum potential by working their way all the way up. And the other, also in another recognition for the science department at Foster is the environmental science program. So there was a competition that, again, Foster High School came in first place in a Northwest Regional Envirothon competition. 6 students were part of that. And also, there was a bunch of internships that our environmental students were able to achieve, I think about, let's see if I have it here. I have it right here. But anyway, there was a number of students from that program that were able to get internships at local government agencies, corporations, and so forth. So really, it's great to see. It's one of the CT programs that I know is a super popular course at Foster, and it's great to see them out in the community. They've also, I understand, have organized, an outdoor education day field trip for our elementary students this year, which is also great. We hopefully will be able to get back to the full Osprey camp next year, but having the high school students be showing leadership positions for the elementary students in this area is really, I know it's been a critical part of the Osprey camp for a number of years. And so it's great that Mr. Camacho is keeping that going, at least in this interim period. So nice work to all the folks in the science department at Foster. And I guess just one other kind of note for people who the city of Tukwila is setting up a Juneteenth celebration in the Sullivan Center, and that'll be June 18th, Saturday, from 2 to 4. So anybody who's interested in participating in that, that's our school is out by then, but the city will be setting up that for people to participate in that celebration. So, and that is all I have. So we'll now move into the consent agenda. So I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second,
It's moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Okay, so the next item on the list is the budget update. So our CFO, Ms. Birdsong, do you want to have any comments on that?
Hello, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so basically, I have been meeting with our budget advisory committee that meets, I believe, the first and third Thursdays of the month. My initial goal was to have staff, community members, students a part of this meeting. I have not been very successful. I have had people who have been interested, but participation has not been great, which isn't uncommon. But I would like to eventually at some point offer some kind of incentive for the community and maybe even students to participate. So that is one area that I've been working in as far as the budget. The new F203, which is the system through OSPI that does our revenue projections, just got updated with some of the new legislation changes that have came upon within the 23-24 school year, 22-23 school year. So I am working through those particular projections. I am trying to finalize enrollment, which again dictates our funding in addition to many other things. And so basically it's a slow and steady process. I am hoping to have some kind of draft sometime soon to kind of let everybody know kind of where we're at with the budget. Another piece of the budget is the ESSER dollars. And I've been trying to have meetings with staff, students, the community to kind of see the overall gist of where those ESSER dollars would like to be spent. And again, the major categories are, the social emotional support, additional supports for students due to the learning loss, PPE, making sure that we have enough of our PPE, even though COVID is kind of it's kind of having its curve up and down, and pretty much supports for staff. So that's pretty much the update that I have with the information that I have now.
Do you have any questions? I just ask Ms. Birdsong, are we, I know there was discussion at one point, we were looking at upgrading some of the ventilation systems with some of the ESSER dollars. Is that process still going on? Are we collecting some information or RFPs or whatever?
I believe that Liliana is still working on that. I will touch base with her and then follow up with the board.
Okay. If there's no other questions on the budget, we'll move to the next item, which is civics class response. So as we recall, back in January, we all had some meetings with several of the civics classes at Foster High School and talked with them about, or mostly listened about their various issues and ideas and so forth. And I think it was last meeting or the meeting before, I think, one of the things that I've noticed in the past when we do listening sessions is there's not really much of a feedback closing loop in terms of, validating that, yeah, we heard you and here's what's going on and so forth. So what I'm proposing here, and I've included kind of my first shot at this draft, to kind of respond to the various issues that they brought up in terms of, what's going on, what is going on. Some of it was related to stuff that was already going on. Some of it was new stuff. So I just wanted to, before civics, I think is primarily seniors. So before they, left the district, I wanted to get some feedback back to them. I mean, obviously a lot of this work is going to be ongoing, but at least some sense back to them about, yeah, we heard what you said and here's what's going on related to that. So what I'm proposing to do is send this memo to the same set of civics teachers that we sent the thank you note to originally. And I'm interested, I've collected what I'm kind of aware of. And so I'd like to send this out, in the next couple of weeks, let's say, back to them. And so I'm interested in particular, the first item there on the list was the gender inclusive schools and all gender bathrooms. And I know, and Director Hoover, if you can give me some word, I just put a placeholder in there because I wanted you to kind of write, whatever you want to say about that. You kind of covered a lot of it in your director's report, but if you could just send me some words specifically to put in there so we have an idea of what's going on and what they're doing, and that would be great. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other, responding to the mental health, I got some input from Director Poa Ryder before she left, and so I've included that in there. And in the student mental health area, there are some, that's been an issue that's been ongoing in the legislature, and we are going to get some little bit of help on that one. The other area that students talked about was food service, and I put in some different ways that they can provide input into the food service process. The health and safety stuff, we have some outdoor eating options. We have a lot of PPE available. We have the vaccinations and that have been ongoing. So just to give them some idea of what's going on there. Another one was a student was blocking websites. It's a requirement. We have to, there's a lot of websites that need to be blocked because they're not appropriate, but sometimes things can get overblocked and students one of the students expressed that he thought there was a website that would be really useful for his academic work. And so what's the process for, reviewing that and seeing if it could be opened up? And so that can be reported to their teachers. The other one, yeah, and this was one, Dr. Hernan, I'm kind of interested in. So one of the students that I was talking pretty passionately about this idea of having some kind of venue for students to, in an ongoing way, to, bring their ideas, their issues, and so forth. Right now, it's the way I understand the system is it's kind of, depends on what your issue is and where you need to go. So we had, food service, here you go, different place in food service. If we have gender inclusive, then you go one place. I mean, it's kind of spread out, which makes it a little confusing, I think, for students sometimes to figure out where they, if they have an issue, they have to kind of figure out our interest, our bureaucracy to figure out where to go. And so this idea, which I thought is a good one, is to have, typically this would be done by like an app or something that students could simply put in, their concern, and maybe it's anonymous, maybe it's not. Obviously, ability of the district to respond to anonymous maybe not as good as others, but at least we would get some sense of what students are thinking about and what students are facing. So my sense is that there's nothing really going on in that area, but I just wanted to validate, is that true, or what are we thinking on that issue?
Yeah, I mean, I can, why don't I inquire to see both with our technology and our teaching and learning areas. So if you can give me a day or two to get back to you on that, but
Okay.
I certainly understand that availability, and also being able to, I'll inquire with a couple of my colleagues as well to see if what they have available in a couple other districts.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. So if we're doing something, if we're not doing something, I'll take that out. If we are, then it's good. But the student, and I can probably, I think I can think of the name of the student, but I won't say him here, but he was really, really passionate about this and had some really good, I think, some good thoughts on that. So student voice and decision making, that's undergoing. I know Dr. Hearn is working on making this happen through a student advisory group, and he's talking with different superintendents in the area. The Juneteenth celebration, the city's working on. And so anyway, yeah, I'll get some input from Dr. Herndon on the student surveys. If Director Hoover can give me words on the gender inclusive, I'll include that in. And then I would propose to send this to the teachers so they can distribute it to their staff, or I mean to the students so they can see this. And then I would propose to put everybody's name on it. If you don't want your name on it, just let me know and I'll take it off if there's anything on here that you don't want. So any questions, thoughts? on that?
Dave, just one simple little thing I would probably add is under the food service, the first one you say, put it in the suggestion box.
Yep.
What happens if they don't feel like their suggestion has been received? Is there a second step they could take?
Yeah, I think my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hearn, is it's probably the usual sequential thing. So if you don't get a response, then you can talk to a food service employee, put it in that way. And if that doesn't get it, then you can, talk to Trevor if you can find him, I guess. I don't know where he hangs out a lot, but I would guess it's the usual
Okay.
process that we would go through. Does that sound right, Dr. Herndon?
Yeah, I mean, we'll try and take a look at the suggestions. I'll see from Mr. Watt what he typically does, but we do get feedback from students about meals and food availability annually. So there is an input process in place for that. Yeah, some of the requests won't be met because they also don't meet the nutritional guidelines that we have. So
Sure,
in
of
some
course.
cases, there could be suggestions, but it's like, yeah, I get that, but that's unfortunately not something that meets our nutritional guidelines.
Yeah, the question in these processes is always kind of the feedback loop. In other words, if they put something in and then they don't hear anything, then they don't know what went on. So
Right.
anyway, yeah, so we just need something that has a feedback loop of some sort. So
Yeah, that was
yeah. Okay. There's nothing else.
good work, Dave. Good work in trying to close this loop.
Thanks.
I would also say that the city council met with the civics classes and they were so impressed, and they went on and on last night in their council member reports talking about the amazing students that they talked to and the great questions and conversations that they had. So our civics teachers should really be proud of what they're doing with students and in reaching out not only to us, but to the city council also.
Yeah, and I think a big part of, I mean, we always talk about student engagement, and when you get students talking to people that are, in the positions of decision making in the communities where they live, that's when you get engagement, because then they can see, what's really going on. So, okay, so let's go to the questions only. Presentations. Are there any questions on the financial forecast? Okay, hearing none. Are there any questions on the enrollment report? Hearing none. Are there any questions on the monthly budget status report? Hearing none. Any questions on the highly capable presentation?
A few questions.
Okay.
questions and then potentially also some just curiosities.
Yep.
So I'm curious what conversations have been like with teachers about this model, and are teachers in support of this? Yeah, just kind of what are the conversations been like, and how's it being received?
Good afternoon, Dr. Herndon and board directors. It's ongoing training, best practices with staff, and as we're doing that, a lot of things are bubbling up. Again, these are conversations that are ongoing. We've had a highly capable program for about several years, and it stopped and started back. So some people have been trained and some people haven't been trained. So a lot of conversations are going on with our consultant, Karen Brown, and we continue to evolve as the year goes on. Second part of that is going to be this year, we're having K-4 testing. So to be the first year that we've done testing at our elementary levels that's equitable, to make sure that we had every student being able to see how they're learning. And we'll be able to look at that data and analyze that data, because what we want to do is challenge each student that's coming into Tukwila School District. So we're at the early stages of these conversations, and we suspect they'll continue to evolve as the year goes on and into next year as well.
You mentioned some things are bubbling up. Curious to know, like, what are some of the vibes of what you're hearing? What's kind of the feelings associated with it?
The ebb and flow. We're talking about best practices, about what's working and what's not working, what we've tried, what we haven't tried, what does data state best practices are. We're doing a new conceptual-based test this year that does not involve our students knowing how to speak English in our tests. And so due to our race and equity tool, so as we're going through that process, a lot of conversations are coming up around access points and how do we make sure we accommodate our students to the best of our ability. So a lot of those questions are coming up as we navigate through this conversation.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you said? We've had a highly capable program for the last few years. What, if anything, is different besides the testing piece that you already mentioned? What's different about this cluster model, or is it the same as the highly capable programs have been in the last few years?
Cluster model is probably the best model we can do at Tukwila. I've been a part of programs that have actually had a private school model inside of a school system, meaning that there was a track for only highly capable students to be pulled out, and some achieving students came with it, which that's not the model we're going with. Our students who are high achieving stay in the classroom. Our gifted students who learn totally different are the ones who will be working in the cluster model with our teachers. And so that's the best, probably the best practices that we could do in our district at this time. I don't recommend any other model for us. We've tried this model before. It started and stopped. And so Tukwila has really cornered the market on this process. I don't see people saying that teachers don't say that they agree with the cluster model. It's just understanding how to carry it out to fidelity. If you do it correctly, it will serve all our students. We just have to carry it out to fidelity. And what I've seen due to budget cuts and other things that have been brought to my attention, and maybe other stories as well, is we've started programs. Previously it was called Sparks, and it started and it stopped. And it started at one school and it wasn't at all three schools. And then it's, and so with that, you have a lot of different ideas, different people wanting to jump on board. You have other people saying, is this going to be something we start and stop again? You have a lot of questions that come up, and rightfully so. So as we continue to work through these conversations, it's growth. And, we're going to have these conversations as we continue to do training. So we just started doing our trainings this year. And as the year goes on, we'll have more and more in-depth conversations, but we're just starting them. So conversations go all over the place. When we start talking about best practices and teaching and who has access and who doesn't have access. So they're early conversations, and as we continue to have those conversations, we'll get better and better with what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you. What were some of the factors that went into the program stopping at various times in the past?
To my knowledge, it was a budget that got started and stopped. That's what I've been brought up to speed on. I've only been in Tukwila 2 years now, so this was going on way before I came in, and so some people have been here a lot longer than I have, and they'll probably tell a more descriptive story than I could. But to my knowledge, it was budget, and that happens sometimes. The state has also changed the model. It's not based on national norms, it's based on local norms. So that has helped us a lot. So we're not categorizing students on a national model, which would totally change who would get access to what we call a highly capable program.
Carly, were you done? Sorry.
I have you go ahead. So.
Okay. Yeah, I just have one question. The cluster model, as I understand it, sometimes clusters the kids that are highly capable apart from the rest of the kids. Are we also working to cluster them across abilities so that sometimes the high cap kids are with, in a group that has all levels of learners so that they're able to support one another also?
Yeah, I think I put two of the cluster books in with you guys, so you guys would have a copy of it, so you can
Right.
kind of read along where we're at in some of the chapters. But the cluster model is really, really social-emotional part first, because the students we're talking about, they learn differently. And as students are highly capable of learning differently, the social-emotional part is so key to them being successful. They're not the typical student that most people would think are turning their homework in on time and doing all the things. They are usually the students who are isolated. They're usually the students who have behavior problems, and they're hard to identify. But these behavior problems are coming because the students are sitting in class and they have the answer and they've moved on to something else. But they're also the students who don't have A's. They're the students sometimes have C's and D's because they don't turn their homework in. So it's a whole different process of working with highly capable students, and the social emotional piece is so key because their mind is working totally differently. And so my hat goes off to our fantastic teachers here in Tukwila that are taking on that challenge to want to do their job and more, because to work with highly capable students, they're taking on a big challenge. And this is we're talking about best practices for all students, but also they are also taking on the social emotional part, which is very, very hard to do in this day and age. And so again, my hat goes off to our students, our teachers, for wanting to take on that challenge, along with the multiple languages we have here in Tukwila. But the idea is, in a cluster model, is to support our students first and foremost where their learning's at and move them forward from where they're at. So that's the piece, and we're trying to identify the students first, and then in each school at the elementary level, Cascade View underneath our principal Fermstead, and then under Principal Thomas and Principal Salisbury, will have equity in each one of the programs, and so we can service our students from kindergarten all the way up to 4th grade and 5th grade. So when we get to our classes at the high school level, we'll actually have students who represent us and look like us. And when we talk about having 77 languages, we should have students identified that are going into the courses that we are producing here in Tukwila at this time.
So I guess I'm a little bit like the idea that, I don't know, I think social emotional needs and supports help are necessary for all students to succeed, not just highly capable students. And so I think one of the things that I worry about with a cluster model, or with clustering in general, is this idea that it continues to have, we should absolutely be having targeted instruction that meets the needs of every student, but that's the point, every student, not just folks that fit in a particular cluster or particular grouping. And so is there a model that can actually give students all students the catered instructions that they need? without further isolating or creating like larger separation. We also know from a lot of, data and research that, having mixed age groups can also be really beneficial. Different experience levels, different knowledge levels can really benefit the social emotional learning of and the academic learning of students. So I mean, I think I really struggle with the folks that the cluster piece of it.
Yeah, thank you for those comments.
Okay, if there's nothing else on the highly capable presentation, we'll move to the iReady data report. Anybody have questions on that one? So I can start with that. So I was interested in the measures of what iReady calls typical growth and stretch growth. So typical growth being essentially 1 year's worth of growth and stretch growth being more than that. And so I asked the question, and this is a question for Mr. Baker, is the response that came back was this report that shows the annual typical growth, and there's a column headed progress median. Can you tell me what progress median means?
I believe, without looking at iReady, I believe it's the average progress of the students that are contained in that particular cell. I captured that data, and that was part of the report that I provided in terms of just the difference in changes in terms of the different tiers of the 5 tiers, and people, students moving from 3 grade levels behind and 2 grade levels behind to 1 grade level behind.
Right. So I don't know, this says progress median. So I'm assuming, I'm looking at this one Cascade View that progress median would say that students or the median student achieved 55% of median growth, or of annual typical growth. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then 29%, in this case I'm looking at, of the students actually met their annual growth. Okay. And then the other column, percent students with improved placement. I assume they moved from 2 grade levels behind up to 1 grade level behind. Is that that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I just wanted to comment that, looking from the first, diagnostic we had for iReady, we had, especially in the elementary school, we had, typically some like 60% of the students that were 2 or more grade levels behind. And now based on this one, the second one, it looks like it's more like, 30%, 40% behind. So that's, significant improvement, which is great, with the kind of notable exception of Showalter, which had still a large number of students that are even 3 grade levels behind. Yeah, half the students in reading and 40% of the students in math. And I guess it was interesting to kind of track this. It's going to be, I think we're seeing the impacts of the pandemic, and this is going to take, I think, probably particularly for this group of students as they go, and particularly when that transition from elementary to middle school is difficult in general. And so now, if there are students that are trying to do that during the pandemic and maybe haven't had as much math instruction as they would normally get, is going to be an issue that's going to be with us for a number of years. And I mean, we're already seeing it in some of the discussions with math at Foster High School. So I guess I just want to say that I think we're going to need to really spend some resources and focus on the students. Math in particular is something that requires generally, particularly at the lower grade levels, a lot of practice. And if they're missing some of that time, it's not, they're going to need some time and some effort to scaffold them and get them back up to their grade levels. So this is going to be, I think, important data to watch. And as we think about our budgets for the next year, I think we're going to, and strategies, I'll be really interested in getting, Mr. Howard's thoughts and Dr. Hernan's thoughts on how we're going to, support these students to help them kind of catch up for some of the learning time that was lost during the pandemic. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. So if there's no other questions on the iReady data, then we go to the presentation. So somebody going to give us a presentation on the arts audit from the Burke Group.
Yes, Mr. Baker, I think Mr. Howard is going to introduce him.
Yes, I want to thank our school board and Dr. Herndon for asking about how we could align our arts and have our arts be more part of what we do daily and engaging our students. So we enlisted the Burke Group to do an assessment and looking at 0 to 5 years and taking a look at how we could be more inclusive of the arts. We have some fantastic art educators on board here in Tukwila, and how can we align and make sure all students have access to our wonderful arts? And so I get a chance to introduce to you Dr. Dwayne Baker, who has done this study for us. It's taken about a year to get everything together. And since then, our teachers have been working together. I want to thank our principals for allowing our teachers to be able to come together and have conversations and start to align their practices throughout this year. And so without further ado, I want to introduce to you Dwayne Baker.
Thank you. And just to check that you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you for letting me join the meeting today. I have to say I'm humbled by your service, and you have so many different things to consider. So thanks for letting me be a part of your work. The Burke Group, actually, we've worked with Tukwila School District for many years, all the way back to 2001, in fact. But I just want to just quickly to give you, our job was to go and look at Tukwila School District. I'm going to stay on the first slide for just a minute. Tukwila School District and the arts needs assessment, and just to give you a perspective of how we go about our work. Just for me personally, I've been in public education for 35 years, 15 years as a practitioner, 21 years as a researcher. And so I come at this, I understand, I think a little bit of it from quite a bit of it from the practitioner side. So I'm very empathetic for that. But we also want to look at what are best practices and analyze things and evaluate things and bring them to you. And then, you have the difficult, policy and procedural types of decisions to make along the way. I just hope that this presentation sparks some ideas and thoughts for you, and that you're able to ask some questions and I can clarify. This is certainly just the beginning of the work, but thank you for letting me be a part of it. And so we can go ahead and jump into the next slide. So I'm going to be visiting with you, briefly here about three main things, and just going to double check the clock here. First of all, the study focused on national best practices. Like if you really want to have a robust arts program that is a part of your school community, what do those look like? And so we certainly did that and looked at those things. In addition to that, we looked at what is the current status of arts, performing arts, fine arts in Tukwila School District. And we did that in several ways: surveys, interviews, focus groups, analyzed, I believe it was 5 years worth of transcripts to see what types of courses students were taking at the secondary level, analyzed, course taking patterns, elementary, middle school, high school. So we analyzed a lot of different things. And I'm going to present that a little bit. And then in the end, what I'd like to share with you is some recommendations for long-term planning. This anything along the lines here, there are some, I think there's some things that are important to consider if I were in your position, but certainly there's no easy fixes along the way. But I want to provide the recommendations as best I can. So next slide. The next slide would be, so looking at best practices, one of the things that we looked at in this study was identifying, what are some best practices? And so first of all, considering arts, okay, and this is going to end up being a deeply philosophical issue for a lot of people, but considering arts as part of basic education, because there is the view that arts are important for art's sake, and that's something I think is sort of a policy idea, or it's certainly an ideology or philosophy, but nationally, and I would say even in the state of Washington, arts is considered part of basic education. In fact, in the state of Washington, 2 credits for graduation are allocated to that. And then there's also national core arts standards that of course, I think every district needs to look at and say, but how does that fit us? And when we have a district where there are 77 different languages and people coming in literally from all over the world, how do we fit into those national core arts standards? And then there are also lots of issues related to equity. The arts are actually seen as a way of actually helping with equity in schools and equity of access for students of poverty or EL students or even special ed students who have a hard time accessing information through just text or linguistically. And so the arts, expressive arts, fine arts, is really considered a way of producing more equity in systems. And then there are several different approaches to K-12 arts education. Now, in the report that we've provided, we just have a draft report. There are, I think we highlighted like 10 or 12 different kinds of K-12 arts education approaches and programs. But I just wanted to present a couple here as a part of this presentation, which are on the next slide. So when you look at considering the best model, we just have to kind of get over that. It has to be the best model for you. There's not a best model nationally. There's a lot of things to consider. I think there are many things to consider within your educational community. But first of all, there are places that just have community-based education. In other words, students actually go on field trips, then they go out into the community, and that's how they get exposed to the arts for the most part. It's not provided necessarily by the schools, or it's just highly supplemented by the community. There's also ecological or environmental arts. I was just working on a project this last week where they're harvesting salt water over here on the Waianae coast on Oahu in the Hawaiian homestead, but they are actually then connecting it to art projects and murals, really honoring the culture of their community in the Waianae and Nanakuli area. There's multicultural arts. There's arts education for social justice, for example. And then there's also art, there's STEM, and there's science, technology, engineering, and math. But there's also science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So it's STEAM. And STEAM is more of an integrated approach at the secondary level. But so a lot of times people bring the arts into STEM. And then another way to bring the arts in is through arts integration. And that is, you can have pull-out programs, or like, at the elementary level, there's definitely a music program, and then there's art. At the middle school, there's classes students take. At the high school, there are classes they take. But there can also be the arts integration. And I really wanted to highlight that one because it's not easy, but I do think that is something to consider, and hopefully I'll be able to share why. Next slide. So as we think about this idea of the best model, I just want to now dive into just some things that we highlighted related to current status. So, as part of this presentation, we won't go into all of the details, but I would say there's two equity issues that I think that, Mr. Howard was talking about how there is a committee that's working on this, and they are considering all these things, and the committee has been up and running, and I think that's great, and I would just really encourage everybody to continue to look at this. But it is there is a concern that there's an equity issue for art in elementary, because although music it looks like it's really well developed and all the students have an equitable access to music because each one of the schools receive that. As far as art is concerned, because there's one person delivering art to 3 different schools and traveling, it just makes it really difficult. Plus there's the scheduling of coming in when teachers invite the person in, and not all teachers invite in equally. And so they're just flat out our equity issues at that level. The second thing is for EL or ELL students, referred to in a couple different ways when we talk to people, but English language learners, which we got a fair amount of. But if you, in looking at analyzing the data through transcripts at this, especially the middle school and high school level, many students, because of the limitation of the number of classes people are able to take, the electives are often dropped, and then they take an intervention class. And you know what? Everything's important. And so it's just a policy issue. It's a philosophical issue. And if it is important to pull students out of their elective, and then they don't all of a sudden develop music at that level, or the other arts at that level, then how can they get it? And that's why sometimes STEAM or integrated arts is helpful. Next, a couple of other things related to current status. There's really definitely a perceived barrier that testing is so important. We just don't have time oftentimes to actually put the kids in art classes or fine arts classes when we have to get math and science scores up. Also, there's the community value proposition. This was a very strong finding that many people felt, and people from the community expressed, that because of the population that Tukwila School District serves in a lot of ways, that there are a lot of parents that are not, maybe don't see the value of art or the arts as an academic value. And so if it's art for art's sake, if that's the philosophy of the district, I think that's a pretty tough sell in the district, whereas arts for academic development is a better proposition. And right now, community voice seem to be stronger along the lines of arts. The arts are not that important. We want our students to get more STEM and more science and maybe some coding and things like that. Finally, also internal barriers. There are staffing issues, and this, nobody ever wants to have to consider, increasing FTE and money-wise, it's not easy, but one of the barriers is just staffing at the elementary level. We would say that elementary art staffing, I'll have a recommendation for you just in a minute, but that is a little bit of a barrier to equity. Also, the scheduling at both the middle school and secondary level, and then substituting. Although it is a graduation requirement to have 2 arts credits, most students do not receive 2 arts credits in Tukwila School Districts. In fact, 2/3 of students do not, because they're substituting out arts classes for other acceptable programs or classes. Last slide. So in our report, and what we've provided are some recommendations. I'll go through these quickly and then end and see if you have some questions about any of these. But moving forward, in building the arts program, I do think, as you settle on a philosophy, which I'll mention in just a minute, it's going to be important to focus in on the publicity, or just, and in the report, we talk about internal and external. If the program continues, is going to be grown, and it's going to be arts for academic development, that would be something that would be a great public service campaign, communicating to the parents to say the arts actually can help with academic achievement. Secondly, we did provide a recommendation both for equity and for program development that the district consider 2 FTE, 2.0 FTE at the elementary level, so that there would be one arts teacher, arts person at each elementary school. That'd be a 3.0 FTE total. Now, I think that there could be a discussion about whether those people just teach art only. I think that depending on what philosophy you settle on, if you settle on arts integration as a philosophy, I think that these people should also serve as arts integration support and also community liaisons. Planning. I think it's great that the district has a committee that's already working. I know it's a really good group and they're making progress. I would suggest a long-term plan. We're currently conducting a report for Seattle Public Schools where we've worked with them for a decade on their arts implementation programs, and it is a long-term endeavor. Property, there are folks that would really love to have more space for band and auditoriums and that kind of thing. But also, I think that the committee needs to look at just instruments along the way. Partnerships. I think from what we've been talking with people about, it's really valuable to have partners in this process. I'll mention, the comment about the science program getting first place in the competition recently, and how there's 22 kids involved, and it was really great at the elementary level, and then it grew through the middle school, and that's just like what we're talking about with the arts. And also it was mentioned that there are some community members that were involved with that. That is oftentimes the way that you have a robust arts program, is that you actually develop arts partnerships in the community. Finally, the philosophy, I think, is a really important discussion for maybe you as the board, but probably the committee to settle on. Listen, if we have to pull kids out of the arts as a class, how can we integrate it more? And from the board position, you might consider policies along the way and programs that are offered. But finally, in the end, whatever changes that might be provided, it's always going to require some professional development, especially if you did integrated arts at the elementary level and STEAM at the secondary level. So I'm just going to stop it there, see if you have some questions. It was great working on this project. We continue to work on it. We're available, and we are continuing to meet and consult with the committee. And we will have a draft. We have a draft of the report, and we will eventually finalize that report when that is ready. Love to entertain any questions that you might have.
Ted, I have a question for you. Who's
Sure.
on this art committee?
Mr. Howard, do you have, are you able to respond to that? I think well, anyway, can you respond to that, Mr. Howard?
Sure. It's all the art teachers. We have some parent input. We have some outside art people from the greater Seattle area as well. And the meetings are open all the time for anybody to come and be a part of. I can send you the dates they're meeting for the rest of the year.
Oh, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Other questions?
Mentioned the, so two-thirds of students end up only taking one elective because they're ultimately having to drop that elective to take another credit to graduate. Is that correct?
Okay, thank you for the clarification on that. Two things there. At the middle school and high school level, oftentimes students are dropping the elective to take an intervention class for whatever reason. Somebody decides that they need an intervention class. But in addition to that, which is allowed, in addition to that, there is cross-crediting to other categories, not in the arts at all, based on students' plans, graduation plans. And so counselors can work with them to transfer. It might not be because they had to drop it because they had intervention class, but they actually chose to drop it. And that can happen a lot of times when students might be really excited at the elementary level about music because they all got it, but all of a sudden they didn't get it at the middle school level. So now they kind of lost their interest or skill level at the high school. It's with the arts, it's important to keep it going throughout. And so, but in the end, about a third, or actually less than a third of students actually graduating from Foster High School with 2 credits in the arts, which is the high school graduation requirement. But those are being appropriate, legally, appropriately, cross-credited somewhere, I'm assuming, but it doesn't help the program. So if we're looking at the arts program, that's the consideration. Those certainly are issues to look at. And can we get the academic help students need, but also continue to build the program? That's when you're looking at the limited resources, that's the challenge. And the integrated arts approach actually helps with that challenge.
So on the subject of the integrated, so we actually have at our elementary school what we call creative learning labs, and those are referred to as STEAM labs. And so I'm wondering, it's like this question for Mr. Howard is, are any of the creative learning labs teachers involved in this arts committee?
They haven't been able to attend at this time, but they've been invited. Our STEAM teachers, our 3 STEM teachers have been supporting inside the building. So they haven't consistently came to the arts meeting, but they're welcome to attend always.
Yeah, it just seems like I guess we haven't gotten that far, but if we want to take at least in part an integrated approach to it, then they would be key in terms of getting them, involved in the process. So is there a timeline for the final draft of this or the final full production of this report?
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, from my
Dr. Baker?
perspective. Yeah, so from my perspective, we believe the report is complete, and what we wanted to do is just leave some time for the committee to review it. I believe they've received that and we're reviewing it. And so, Mr. Howard, if you want to, just double check if there's any more feedback from the group, we could wrap that up. I would say within a week of receiving any feedback or the go ahead from you and the committee.
Yeah, they've been reviewing it for the past week and a half. So we have a follow-up meeting with them coming up next week, and we'll finalize everything.
Okay,
And so
great.
I would say approximately 2 weeks then.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing a lot of the topics that I've been kind of wondering about. You've covered at least at a high level, so I'd be interested in seeing some of the details and the recommendations. So any other questions on this for Mr. Baker?
I have one. Mr. Baker, can you give us an example of how you've seen community partnerships work?
Yes, so community partnerships. So I'm actually over in Oahu right now, over in Waianae, and on the campus I was on today, it's Kwan. They were they met together. They talked about the culture, and then they decided that one of the things they would want to do is build a hale, so a structure, and then they worked with the community to come in. In other cases, they tell the mo'olelo, and they tell the story of the community, and then a community artist will come in and actually work with the students to do a mural on the side on a school wall. I was in a high school, Nanakuli High School last week, where 3 members from the community came in and are working with about 30 students during the school day in their classroom, and they're actually developing video games. And they have one group that creates the lore, another group that's creating the coding, and another group that's doing the art. And they were talking about how you don't have to be an artist to do this art, and they're creating it, and they're all working together. And it was an amazing experience watching the teacher go around and facilitate and learn along with these 3 community members who are professionals in developing video games, and seeing engaged to the hilt kids in their learning. They are going nuts, and so just almost every day of my life, I get to see community partnerships and how they're integrating in, whether it's local verbal history, or if it's art, or if it's dance, any music. There's another group where there's a person from the community. They're making ukuleles, and so it goes on and on and on. A lot of the programs we're working with and evaluating and coming alongside, it's the richness of the community that just brings to life sometimes the things that are going on, in the classroom. And so that's why a community liaison, if there was somebody at the school that could help develop those relationships so that the school knew who to contact and actually was kind of vetted, because sometimes you have more people than you can, reach out to, or use in your classroom. So having somebody that knows and can develop relationships is a great, great thing. There's a lot of value in the community.
Those are wonderful examples. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay,
Thanks for sharing those examples. I do have one more question, Director Larson, if that's okay.
go ahead.
It's kind of more of a budgetary related question. So I know that in the past, arts funding has been cut at the elementary level. The teachers' hours were cut. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what is the status of the budget that we have right now for the arts? And do we feel like we're in a place where we can really invest in really establishing a strong infrastructure for this program?
Director Hoover, I can get you that information kind of offline and get that for you.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Another question. Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Thank you.
Move on to the next presentation, Excello update. Is this Ms. Fachamba?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me to talk about Xello, and specifically really talking about college and career readiness, which is something that I've been working in for like 20 years now. And I'm really excited for this. I believe Deborah was going to give me access so that I could share my screen so I can show you Xello rather than just talk about it.
Do you have access, Jennifer?
I don't.
should.
I cannot share my screen.
Okay, one moment, please.
Thank you. So while she is doing that, oh, I'm joining as a panelist. Okay.
You should be able to share now.
I am sharing my screen now, or I'm going to share my screen. So just give me a second to do that. I'm trying to, it just keeps popping up saying I cannot do that. You actually have to enable that for me, Ms. Core.
You were probably in the same situation I was in during the work session, I think.
Yeah, here I am. Okay.
Okay.
All right, technology. All right, so first of all, I was really excited when I was given the opportunity to oversee Xello. If you've been around the district for a while, previously we had what was called career cruising, which was like a career interest inventory, and it was nice, but it really served just one purpose. And Xello, I believe, like, it's exciting. I kind of look at it as sort of like the Facebook for college and career readiness. And their whole purpose of it is for having every student future ready. And it's exciting because I first started out working in college and career in a high school, and then I moved down to middle school, and now I'm doing college and career readiness K through 12, which is super exciting to me. In this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about what Xello is, how we're using it in the Tukwila School District, and data, I'm going to say loosely because it really is our first year, and so there's not really a lot to compare it to. And then there's time for questions and answers. And I do want to thank Mr. Larson, Director Larson, for asking questions early on. So let's get started. So the whole purpose of Xello is to help create successful futures. so that students are able to explore early different kinds of career pathways through a fun, engaging software that students can access online. They can access it on their computer. They can access it on their smartphones. And it's also just a really great way for them to start creating a roadmap to their future of what they want to do. There's basically 3 pillars: increasing engagement and achievement. So because we're doing this early on, they have a higher chance of reaching their potential when they're understanding how their education links to what it is that they want to do in their future. And then secondly is enabling successful transition. As you know, like transitioning from elementary to middle school and middle school to high school is always a bit daunting, and there's always a little bit of a learning curve. But this is really a way to help them connect everything and navigate through their transitions, because Zello actually has lessons around transition at those grade levels that helps them understand what to expect in the future. And we can also build out whatever we learn from that to help do transitional programs like in person as well. And then finally, we just want every student future ready. So as they're going through this, they're going to start gaining knowledge about who they are as a person, what kind of career they may want, like what kind of training they're going to need, but they're just really going to learn a lot more about themselves and what they want, like potentially would like to do with their future. Okay, so in Tukwila, we are rolling out Zello kind of from our seniors backwards for a lot of reasons. We are going to be using at the secondary level, we are going to use Zello for our high school and beyond plan. In the upcoming slides, I can show you how that's going to be working out. There's lessons that support the high school and beyond plan, from resume building to just like college knowledge activities and just the various different things, and then just Matchmaker to figure out like what it is they're interested in. We are also hoping to do our student-led conferences through that, because in Zello, starting in 3rd grade, they're able to create their own personalized page, and they'll be able to upload pieces of work that they're proud of that they can share with their families through the Zello platform. And then in elementary, which we haven't rolled out at all, I do have I have like a kindergarten teacher that she was really excited about Zello. And so she's had her kindergarteners like really actively working in it. But overall, I haven't trained kids because, as you know, this year with COVID, like it really hit the elementary schools really hard at the beginning of the school year and a little bit, in January as well. And they did not have the capacity to learn about Zello. So in the fall, we'll be rolling out elementary. For the K through 2 cluster, they go through what's called a career town. They are career detectives. It's cartoon based. It is supported with graphics and words, and the kids get to explore career town and solve mysteries. And along the way, they're learning about different jobs in everybody's community. And then 3rd through 5th, they will begin to explore their interests by completing different missions. Again, everything is supported with graphics and also with vocabulary. And so not only are they getting to do these fun activities, but they also are building their college and career readiness vocabulary. And they will then begin starting to create an About Me page. They'll be able to start exploring careers a little bit more deeply, and they can start creating goals for themselves. And as I mentioned before, there's activities around transition from elementary to middle school. I almost said high school. That would be a big transition. So I really thought that it would really be important for you all to just see what the Zello platform is. And I'm going to start off by showing you what the elementary students see, and then the secondary. And then on the next slide, I will show you what my platform, what it looks like for me as the one who oversees Zello, and how I can export data from the platform. Okay, so for the 3rd through 5th graders, they see when they open up their Zello, this is what they will see. It says Jennifer because it's a demo. And what you can see here is there's an About Me section, a career section, and a goals section. But what you also see here is the missions that they can take. And They would go through the missions. They have to start with mission interest and then they work their way through. And what ends up happening is a lot of things end up getting saved into their about me and their careers and their goals. Let me open this one just so you can kind of see. So basically, this is what it'll look like when they start their missions. They'll find out all about the interests on this important mission. And the kids basically are going to be climbing through. There's a lot of videos. They're going to answer some questions as they go along the way. It's a lot to show you, but I can also give you all access to Zello so that you also can explore it a little bit yourself. But if you go to their About Me page, it's going to look like this. And at the top, this is why I say it's kind of like a Facebook page for college and career readiness, because they can upload a picture of themselves or an avatar. Some of the kids at the high school put avatars up there. They can also change this background right here. And then they can go through and they can select things that they're interested in, skills that they're very good at, and then subjects that they really like at school. And then if they receive any awards, they can add those into this platform. And so I think you can see now sort of why it'll be good for them for doing student-led conferences too, because as they start gaining things, they will be able to add it to their Zello platform. And the really cool thing I think at the bottom is a storyboard. So they can add things to their storyboard, like pieces of work that they're proud of from their classroom. Their teacher can scan it or take a picture of it, and then they can upload it. I think that this is really an awesome opportunity. And I think this is a great way for them to be able to utilize this for student-led conferences. And then I just wanted to show you briefly, the K-2 is a little bit different. It really is like cartoons, and it's very it's very cartoon heavy. The kids will get to make an avatar. If it'll work, let's see. Okay, well, it's not working for me at the moment. So let me try something else. Okay, I'll go back and we'll try to come back to that. The next I'll show you, and I think what you'll see is how similar the 3rd through 5th dashboard is to the secondary dashboard. The really big difference is this is not as graphics are not the same, and also it's not as it's a little bit more advanced. So when they log into their Zello, this is how it will look for them. They still have the About Me at the top. They have exploring options and then goals and plans. And then they also have like this section right here where they can complete a matchmaker survey, do a personality style, learning style, etc. And then also some college planning can happen here, exploring careers and schools. But also what I thought I should mention is, for example, our 12th graders right now, part of their senior plan is they have to finish their matchmaker. That's their career interest survey. They need to build a resume. And they also need to submit a writing sample, and they do a career path choice. This is what we determined, because this is new this year. This is what we determined for our seniors to complete as part of their high school and beyond plan. Some of these activities we've actually bumped into 9 through 11 and even in 6 to 8. So that by the time they get to their senior year, they're doing a little bit more advanced work. But because we just started it this year, we needed to make it accessible and like something that they would be able to work through, because we had to train staff and all of those kinds of things. I'm going to just show you this top part, the About Me. And again, I'm the one who, it's my demo. So again, they can do the same thing. They can upload a picture, change the background. And then you'll see like these are some of the careers that got saved in my About Me. There's personality style, learning style, skills lab. And then maybe some goals that they had. And then like I was really into theater, so I really appreciated the art presentation before. And then the same thing, their interests, places that they've been, skills that they have. And then again, they have the storyboard down below where they're able to upload work to it. And so this is really great for students when they're doing student-led conferences. The other tab is exploring options. And so this is where they can learn more about like different things that they're interested in. So maybe wanting to be a childcare worker, they can learn more about the childcare worker by clicking on the link. They can start saving colleges that they're interested in. And then like majors that they might be interested in. I just added a ton just for example for students. And then goals and plans. This is where really the students can actually spend a lot of time making their plans, and they can manage there's a whole section, the college planning. We're in the process of opening that up for students because applications like the coalition application and things like that are going to be available in Zello. And so students will be able to work on their applications right here in the Zello and have everything stored in one place rather than having like kids are digging through their emails to try to find like their passwords and all of those things. It's all going to be stored in one place. Miss Standard and I will be able to upload scholarships, like local scholarships that we have available. And then there's a college knowledge hub, so like the Common App, financial aid, scholarships. The one thing that really is missing here under financial aid is WASFA, but this is because this platform is a national platform. And so I am working with Zello to see if we can get WASFA put in here specifically for Washington State. There's lessons around transcripts and recommendation letters. There's lessons around personal essays, ACT and SAT, and all of those kinds of things. So it's a really a great opportunity for our young people. Next, I want to share with you what it looks like on my end. And so when I open up the dashboard for me, and actually any teacher who opens it up, what they're going to see is this. And so right off the bat, you're seeing the student usage. And this is for Foster High School, I'm pretty sure, because this is what I've been working on all day, is their high school and beyond plan. And so today we had 180 students log into Zello. And that has really to do because today was an advisory day at Foster. And so kids are working on their high school and beyond plan in all grade levels, but specifically in their senior year, there's a lot that needed to get some things done. There's a lot of great features to show you here. We do have a family feature, and we did just this last Thursday have a family night that I presented with our liaisons, and the families are very interested in it. But I think that because we haven't rolled it out to the elementary school yet, we weren't prepared to open this up to families widely. My goal is to open this up to our families widely in the fall after we've started elementary students working on it. There's an educator section, which is not a section that it's really where all of our like people, like teachers and things, it's just their information for me mostly. And then up here, I can go through and change the institution. And I want to show you Foster because that really is the section that I've been doing a lot. Foster and Showalter I've been working the most with. So this is where all the data comes in. They have a really great reports feature. And I'm still working through the best use of this data. But what I really am working on currently is lesson progress. And when you pull it up right away, it's going slowly. You can see just the graphics right away of like progress, how many students have been working on it, how many students have completed lessons, like complete lessons for their grade band. And then students that haven't started it. We just started rolling out our 9 through 11. So that's why you're going to see many more students needing to access it because we just started rolling it out 9 through 11 this week and last week through advisory. The next thing that you can look at is the progress by grade level. Again, it's just a different graphic, but here's where you can actually look at the percentages of where students are. So in 9th grade, we have about 35% of our students who are in progress with it. And then 144 that have not started. It doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't been on their Zello. It just means they haven't really started the lessons that are attached to it. They could have been exploring their Zello because we have done some activities where they've done scavenger hunts to like just learn the ins and outs of Zello. So it just depends on where the advisory teacher is in the process of all of that. The big thing that we've really worked on is working on our seniors. We have 17% of our seniors that have completed everything in Zello. That is a big jump because I put information, I gave advisory teachers information of where their students were with completion. And I think that like kind of put some fire under them to like work with their students. We also had an increase of students actually starting working on it. We have this number, while it seems pretty high, this is a mix of kids that are at the PSSC who are doing their high school and beyond plan through there. This might be some Running Start students who aren't in advisory twice a week. And then we also have some of our LRC students listed in here who are doing an alternate high school and beyond plan or are going to the Achieve program. When you click on this, what you will see is that you'll see the list of students and their completion, and you can see that they're at 100%. The items in Zello are not the only things that are part of their high school and beyond plan. Another part of their high school and beyond plan is financial aid, and then we do have a senior exit survey. So Ms. Standard and I have cross-referenced our seniors to make sure that they've done financial aid, and the majority of our kids in this category have. I will let you go ahead and just see what it looks like if they have completed it. You can see here, it says 5 out of 5 activities are done. And what I'm working on right now is going through to make sure that while it says it's done, that it is actually complete, especially with the writing sample and the resume. I've had a couple kiddos who said that they were done with the writing sample, and it basically said that they don't like writing. So I kind of pushed them to do a little bit more. So that's sort of what that looks like. And then if you were to look at, if you were to look at the kiddos that are in progress here, some of them you'll see, like we have some that are very close to being done. Like this student has just one more activity to complete. And then we have a handful that have just done one activity. I do have the opportunity to send them messages. And so I can compose an email message to my seniors and let them know, hey, thank you so much for getting started. Please, let's continue working on it. Some of you are very close to finishing your high school and beyond plan, and some of you still have a ways to go, but if you need help, you can stop by. And so I've been sending them messages this way. And that has also helped them to like move a little bit faster through it because we only have like 30 days till graduation. And so I kind of remind them of that as well. The other ways that Zello is being used is career choices. Ms. Polworth does a whole activity with Zello to have them do career explorations. And also the Abbott's classes at the middle school are using Zello for career, like part of their career activities they do through Abbott. There is a whole college planning section, and it's still, there's a lot of things that we're still working through. And then there's also this high school and beyond plan report. This is like super new. I just met with them 2 weeks ago, and there are some things that we need to fine tune with that before we actually utilize it effectively. Because right now it's very broad. It's for many school districts that are using Zello. Mr. Larson, you had asked about that. And there are school districts that are using Zello. However, like us, it's very brand new because previously they also used Career Cruising. So it's a transition. I think that covers that. And I guess this is time now just for questions and answers. And sorry, I'm very used to presenting to students, but I get a little nervous in front of adults.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else questions?
One super quick question. I'm so sorry if you said this at the beginning. So there are 2 different platforms. Does the information from the elementary platform transfer to the secondary?
Yeah, it follows them from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. The really big difference is that the K through 2nd is really more like they get to be a career explorer, and they just are going through different career town. And sorry, for some reason it's not working on my computer right now, but it's really fun and it's super interactive. They get to make their own avatar. But once they get to third grade, the About Me, all of that follows them. And it gets updated year after year.
Quick question. I'm wondering, is there a kind of a to-do list function here? I'm thinking particularly of the FAFSA, I mean, which is so critical that students, complete. Is there a way in there? I know you said you could personally send the messages, but is there some kind of automatic way in there?
Yeah, so there is a way, and let me see if I can show you. So if I were to look at like one of my students who completed it, eventually my goal is to give financial aid as part of their lesson. Anyway,
Okay.
I had a little bit of a learning curve, and so here we are. So they do have like a to-do list. So this is their to-do
Okay.
list of activities that they have to do. Financial aid is a goal that I have to put on it going forward. But we had already, by the time we actually like rolled out Zello, we had already, because October 1st, we started
Yeah.
working on financial aid. So yes, so it will be eventually something that will be on their list of to do.
Yeah, that'd be great, because we're always, Foster High School is always on the top. I always follow that particular indicator with the
Yeah,
Council, and Foster is always way at the top of the list. So, which is great, because it's one of the key indicators to whether students actually get to college is,
is there financial aid? Yeah, actually, today we worked with kids on financial aid even. We helped a few kids finish their WASPA and their FAFSA today, actually. And so we really are working towards getting as many students done as possible.
Yeah.
We found it to be a little bit more challenging through the pandemic, and also kids, there's a lot of more students that are considering taking a pause.
Yep.
Just for a lot of reasons, right? And so, so it's been a little bit more challenging this year, but kids are really following through and getting it done.
One other question, it's just an idea. So so students are going to put their interest in here. This could be used potentially to drive some like field trips, or bringing people, from the industries that they're most interested in, bringing them in. So I hope maybe you can use it as that driving something.
Yeah, it's actually, it's good that you brought that up. That's actually a goal of mine for all grade levels. But when I'm thinking about elementary field trips, I really want to have field trips that have a career component to it, because we do take our young people to really great places like the aquarium or to the science center. But all of the people that work there work in a field of science or technology or just different things like that. And I think that this will help us like create activities around what the career pathway is and what the education pathway is. And so my goal is to build field trips that are more career oriented and have that career component to it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I remember one year at Cascade View, we went to the skill center, and the students were all fascinated because they went down and looked at all the different skill centers for possibilities, and gives them a whole new outlook on different things that they hadn't really thought about before. So.
That's actually a field trip that I talked to Mrs. Goodman about from Thorndike, and we want to bring that field trip back. And I actually have a big idea of doing a college and career fair at the Sullivan Center, where students and families can come, and elementary students and families can come, and they can see different colleges, different career pathways, and then they'll be partnershiping with like the library, where they can get library cards, maybe work with people from Sound Transit so they can get their ORCA cards, and then the community center can be there as well, just so it's a more robust opportunity for families and students. So that's my plan for next spring. So I have goals.
Great.
For the elementary.
That sounds wonderful, Jennifer.
Thank you. It's really exciting for me because I understand that I've worked in it long enough, and I understand the need for building that vocabulary and building that capacity for kids at an earlier age. So.
Okay, any other
Yeah, I do have one question. And
Okay.
maybe you mentioned this and I missed it, Jennifer, but did we run this through the race and equity tool? And another way to ask that, do you feel like the representations in these careers and through the way Zello represents them, our kids are going to see careers that represent them, or people that represent them?
This is based out of Canada, and I honestly, I'll be very like transparent here. I was asked to take this on like 2 days before school started. And so I'm not really sure how it was vetted. I just was excited that we had this great tool that kids can use at an early age. I do know like with the avatar, with the K2, like they can make their avatars resemble themselves. And so there's just different ways of creating their avatars. And also even in the Career Town, I've explored that a lot. They have people of different ethnic backgrounds and just women in trades position and things like that. I think beyond that is really just making sure that building partnerships with organizations like ANU, that's an apprenticeship program that really like supports women in the trades as well as the BIPOC community in the trades. And so really building that partnership as well. And I really have a strong appreciation for the apprenticeships because my husband also is a union tradesperson. And so I really feel that that's such a good pathway for some of our young people. And so I really am looking to develop that in our district as well.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions, appreciate the presentation, Ms. Vichamba, and we'll move on to the action items.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the first, I need a motion to approve the Human Resources Staffing Report.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Human Resources Staffing Report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The report is approved. Entertain a motion to approve the school calendar for 22-23.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the school calendar for 22-23. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Hearing none. School calendar is approved. Entertain a motion to approve the WASDA legislative proposal.
So moved.
Oops, second.
Okay, so this one is what we discussed. Director Morris brought up this issue at the last meeting, and I just wrote it up here. WASDA shall initiate and/or support legislation that funds an ample and equitable allocation of school district to support running start students. It's the issue around, do we have enough, in particular, are they funding enough counselor support for the students that go to Running Start? And in particular, is it, I mean, we know it's not equitable because it's the same, the way that the state funds it's the same for everybody, regardless of the need of students. So this is just putting, the deadline for submitting these was was the 20th. So I went ahead and submitted it. This is just to get it approved, and then I can check the box that says it's been approved. And
Thank you for writing that up, Dave.
yeah, thank you for bringing it up. I don't know, Dr. Herndon, did you have any other information on this that I can use in advocating when I go over to Pasco?
No, I don't think so, just because I think that language in itself helps to address the issue in each individual district need, because it could be different, the amount of work needed could be different. So I think that's probably the best way to approach that.
Okay. If you get some information about exactly how many, how much of our counseling staff is spent on it, it would be helpful just to bring that as an example. So, okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve the WASDA legislative proposal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Is approved. Action item 9D, we have a resignation letter from Director Aploa Ryder to resign from the Tukwila School Board. Entertain a motion to approve the resignation.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, I'll second. All in favor of approving the resignation, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? None opposed. So at this point, having accepted the resignation, first of all, I just wanted to, before we do the next process, which is going to be nominations for president and vice president, I just want to express my appreciation and thanks to Director Ryder for her service in the community and to the school district as a parent and a professional in the mental health profession. Her wisdom and work in this area has been greatly appreciated, particularly in leadership roles of pushing our race and equity report, and particularly reaching out to the community in various ways through the Steering Together Committee and various community groups, and also providing some leadership on restructuring our committee meetings, our board meetings, and also for engaging students and getting their input into our decision-making process. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done in this area, but I really appreciate the time that she has spent on the board with us, and wish her the best in her future endeavors. So, does anybody else have any comment at this time?
Yes, thank you so much for opening up the space for that. I just want to share my deep gratitude and appreciation. This is a loss for our district, but certainly not for our community. I have no doubt that Bridget is going to continue to be a strong advocate and a voice for the community, and continue to do the deep healing work that we all need so desperately. But I am just personally so grateful for the time that I was able to spend working alongside her over these last few months, and I've learned a lot. So I just wanted to, in this forum, just share my appreciation and gratitude for Bridget. So thank you, Bridget, and I very much appreciate and value every ounce of energy and work that you brought to this space, and for pushing us all.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you for the leadership that Bridget gave us, and also concern over what she has to face in her future with the illnesses in her family that she needs to support. It's a hard decision to make, to step aside from something you care about, like the board, but she has a strong commitment to her family, and I honor that. So I wish her well.
Okay, thanks for those comments. So the next, what this triggers is an approval, a resignation triggers a nomination process for the board president. And the way this goes is I'll open up the floor to nominations, and then we'll take the nominations, and then we'll do a basically a roll call vote is called for here, where each person, I'll call on each person, and they'll indicate who they would vote for as president. So I'll open up the floor to nominations for president, and I'll start off by nominating Director Hoover. Are there any other nominations?
Would you be interested in being president, Dick?
No, I'm supporting Director Hoover. Okay, one more chance. Any more nominations? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations and I'll do a roll call vote and you just say how you would vote on this issue. Director Bolajak,
Unmute, yes.
you probably need, yeah, it's a one person, so you're voting in favor of.
Yes, in favor of Ricardo.
Yes,
Yes.
okay. Director Morris,
Yes.
okay. Director Hoover? I'm seeing your mouth, pardon me.
Can't hear you.
Is it not working? Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
And myself, I vote for Director Hoover as well. Okay. So Director Hoover is our new president. We now need to fill the position of vice president. So I'll open up the floor for nominations for vice president.
I nominate Dave Larson.
Any other nominations? Okay, hearing none. Close the nominations and go around in order. Director Bolajak,
Yes for Dave.
Director Morris,
Yes.
Director Hoover,
Yes. I don't know what's wrong with my microphone right now, but
it's going in and out, and I'll vote for myself. So, okay, so Director Dave Larson is nominated as vice president. And at this point, I think I can turn for the last, what do we got, 2 items over to Director Hoover as president. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to just finish it? It's up to you.
I'll jump in. Why not?
Okay,
Sounds
okay,
fun.
go for it.
All right, so then wait, I can get all the mess ups out. Actually, that's not true. I'll do it again later, I'm sure. So moving on to action item B, which is approval of a donation from Pine Lake Middle School PTO. Can I get a motion to?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Do we have discussion?
Yeah, I just want to thank the 2 quality engagement coordinators, Marianne Abdo and Julie Hurt. I think they worked, you know, we got this is from the Issaquah School District, and we got a donation from them, I don't know, last year or the year before, that was, you know, trying to target students and families that had specific needs in our district. And I'm sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hernan, but I think I'm guessing that the 2 quality engagement and good coordinators worked extensively with the school district to help, or with the school to help direct this money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
they work hard to try and get
Yeah.
that out there.
Yeah, I know they work hard on a lot of things. I just suspected they also work particularly hard on this one. So anyway, I appreciate their work on bringing this in. I'm sure it'll make, I know they work hard all the time to get grants to support particularly our students, our McKinney-Vento students. So thank you.
And the Pine Lake kids are coming tomorrow to work in the donation center all day. So they like to be on site, but because of COVID, it was kind of restricted, but they are coming tomorrow to do that work.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the donation, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thanks, folks. I heard all the ayes. All right, it passes. That brings us to action item F, approval of resolution number 922, authorizing the superintendent to issue non-renewals.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on this. All right, Hearing none, I'll move to approve all, oh, yeah.
Carly,
Mhm.
could I just ask one question of Mr. Howard? Is he still here with us?
Is it related to this item?
Yes, he is. Is it related to the resolution?
No.
Oh,
Is it okay to ask that then?
we should probably ask at a different time. So we
Okay.
can set this
Okay,
res-
that's fine.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Oh,
Aye.
I'm sorry, I thought we were done with that.
No worries. Anyone opposed? All right, great. So moving on to item number 10 on the agenda, our closing public comment opportunity. So as a reminder for folks, if you would like to verbally give public comment, you can do so by writing your name in the chat or simply raising your hand.
I don't see anything in chat, nor do I see any hands raised at this time.
Okay, great. Well, then we will move on lastly to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any opposed? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much, Dave. Dr. Larson, thank you.
Congratulations, new officers.
See you all next time. Have a lovely rest of y'all's night.
Thank you.